Alright guys, so today we're going to take a look at how we can level up our chord knowledge and skills on the fretboard, hopefully with the goal to being able to play chords all over the neck without having to memorize a load of different shapes, but more being able to build them wherever we think is most musically appropriate. Now actually as guitar players, I think we actually have a little bit of a hard time with this just because of how the guitar's designed and how we're taught chords. Usually we get taught a bunch of different shapes and then we play a bunch of different songs and it kind of gets left there, whereas piano students will be taught this is the notes that we need for this chord and this is where they are, and that is the most important piece of information you can have whenever you're playing a chord. So today we're going to look at how we can take that, apply it to the guitar fretboard to be able to play chords all over the neck and be much more kind of decisive and musical when using chords and really level up our playing there. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to take an E minor chord. E minor is a fairly friendly chord, we all know it. For 99% of us, it was probably this shape that we encountered first when dealing with E minor. So the notes in E minor are E, G and B. And all we need to make an E minor is one instance of that. We can have more if we want. This shape has 3 E's, 2 B's and a G. We have an E on our open E string, B on fret 2 of the A string, another E on fret 2 of the D string, and then we get our G, B and our E. But really, any combination of E, G and B that we can lay our hands on is a valid E minor chord. So you could play the top 3 strings open, I could play my open E string, I could play fret 12 on the G, and then I could play fret 19 on our B here. If I play all those 3 together, that's an E minor. It's not a particularly easy one to grab hold of, but it's still just as valid as the other 2 that we've looked at. And this really lets us choose how we want to kind of represent the chord that we're playing, rather than just relying on stock shapes. We could think, is this a part of the song that needs a small tense sounding E minor, in which case we would get those notes as close together as possible. For example, I could play fret 7 on my A string, gives me an E, fret 5 on the D string gives me a G, and then fret 4 on my G gives me a B, and it gives us a very close sounding chord. Conversely, if you want a really big wide sounding chord, maybe you're going for something dramatic, or maybe if you're in like a 3-piece and you've got more scope to occupy a wider frequency spectrum, we could play our open E string, we could then play fret 12 on the B string, gives us a B note, fret 15 on our high E string, gives us our G note, and if we want to add the open G in with that as well, we get a much bigger spread of an E minor now. So like I say, it lets us be really quite decisive and work out what the song needs, what's the best voicing for that chord. You can also use this to work out voice leading. If you're using other chords, you can weave in melodies and that kind of thing. Now just to demonstrate this with another chord that's not quite as common as E minor, if we take a B flat, the notes in B flat are B flat, D and F. And the first thing I'd do anytime you do this, because you can do this with any chord, is scan through the chord and see if any of those notes are available as an open string, because the guitar is kind of an instrument that is designed around the open strings. They always sound a little bit bigger than their fretted counterparts. In the B flat chord, we've got our D note that we can play. So we'll take our open D string. So now all we need to do is find a B flat and an F. So it doesn't mean that that D has to be the lowest pitch, unless we particularly want it to be, in which case it can. But if we take our fret 6 on our A string and our fret 6 on the B string, that'll give me the B flat on the E and the F on the B string. And now if I play those 3 strings, I've now got my B flat major chord. And that's just one example there. There'll be hundreds of examples you could do for any of the chords with this. And really what I'd recommend doing with this is really kind of hone in on how do you want to deliver the part of the song. There's nothing wrong with cowboy chords. If it's like a Neil Young type song that you're playing, then by all means, those are probably going to be the best voicings you can lay your hands on. But particularly if you're playing with someone else, if they're playing those open chords and you're taking on a lead guitarist role and you're thinking a bit more texturally, or a bit more lead orientated, then just see, do you want to take up a big frequency space? Do you want to apply effects to it, in which case low notes might not be as affected as high notes with reverbs and delays, that kind of thing. So really just keep in mind how you want to kind of deliver the chords that you're playing. Now obviously there's 2 prerequisites to being able to do this fast. One of those is knowing all the notes on the fretboard, the other being the notes in the chords that you play. So there'll be 2 videos flashing up on screen now. The one on this side will take you to a lesson explaining where all the notes are on the fretboard, and on this side we've got one that explains how to work out what notes are in the chords that you're playing. Otherwise, any questions, drop them in the comment section and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.